but that's what it is, that you have to identify who is your customer, and you might not be, like Allan said, you might not be your own customer. We might not be our own customer either, you know? So you have to figure out, you're not shooting for yourself, you're shooting for the people who are gonna pay you.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Eric Reagan here, Photography Bay, and today we're trying something a little different and new. I sit down with Knoxville photographers Allan and Lisa Mueller to talk about photography and their business, ALM Photo. We really have a great time talking about a host of topics, including networking, working for free, which is a hot topic of late, and pricing your services as a photographer. Also, the fate of Lisa's mud-covered 5D Mark III. I hope you guys enjoy this Talk show as much as we did, and I really hope you found the info inside useful. So let me know in the comments what you think, and if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. So I'll reset that, and if you can just walk us through how you got into photography, how you started ALM Photo, or how you guys got into photography together.
Okay. It all started back when Allan had a boat dealership and he bought the Sony Mavica digital camera that you had to put the 3.5-inch floppy disks into.
Okay, yeah.
And you'd get like 3 photos on a disc,
Right.
and it was crazy. But he wanted to take photos of the boats and the interiors and different things they were doing and be able to easily have them put onto their website. So this was back, I don't know, we met in like 2000, so it was probably around 2001 maybe. So it seems like forever ago. And
not a very efficient camera.
It wasn't the best camera, but it got the job done for what they wanted to do. And Allan had, and he can talk about this if he wants to talk, but he took...
If I get to talk.
If he gets to talk. He took photography classes in high school, so he knew about photography, and I really didn't. I was just creative. But I kept stealing the camera from him, and they'd put me to work helping out, taking the photos. So that's what kind of got us back, or him back into photography and into the digital age.
And so that's where I see the all of the wakeboarding photos. That's the kind of the backstory.
Exactly, exactly.
That's kind of born together, right? The wakeboarding, because I've noticed a lot of wakeboarding, I guess, on your social feeds.
Yeah.
And some of you wakeboarding too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I started back in high school with the film developing and all that, and continued that on through college and a little bit past that. And then, you know, at the boat dealership, when we got that first digital camera, it was kind of neat because things came out immediately as opposed to having to go through the darkroom and develop it or have somebody else develop it for you. And then, you know, with that particular camera, action was pretty tough.
Yeah.
But I learned how to do it. But it real advantage came when we stepped up to I think the first actual DSLR would have been the Canon 30D.
Okay, yeah, I remember that one.
Which was it's definitely a step up. So that's when the action stuff actually started, because you didn't have to plan like 5 seconds ahead of time.
Okay,
take the
so
shot.
that was at one point Canon had a D30, and then they had a 30D. Is that right? Back in the early.
Yeah, they flip-flopped. That's where I have the press. One of them started. They went through a series, and then they put the letter on the other side.
Right. So they had the 10D, 20D, 30D, 40D, and then they're up to the 70D now. So you had
so I had the D30.
The D30. Okay.
It was the letter was in the front.
I remember that was confusing, those early years, and Nikon and Canon's numbering scheme.
Yeah. They probably just ran out of numbers, had to move the letter.
So yeah, he got that camera, and then that's what started him getting more into the photography, and he tried to teach me how to understand how to actually take good photos.
Okay.
And
still working on that.
Still working on that now.
Yeah, I'm the technical guy.
He likes the more technical side of things. I like the more creative side of things.
Yeah.
So he tells me when we're shooting weddings or anything together, he's like, go get detail shots, go get make it pretty, do all
Right.
that. So that's when we decided that maybe this was something that we could do, not as a business, but just something for fun. So he took a lot of pictures of flowers, a lot of pictures of wakeboarding, just whatever was happening. And that sort of led to, as it tends to do with a lot of people now, people started asking us to take photos of
Right.
things. Hey, can you take family photos? Hey, can you photograph our wedding? And we really didn't understand how things like the workflow of a wedding or any
Right.
of that. It's like, sure, we'll photograph your wedding. So we started out with doing that. And that became like a part-time business.
Okay.
And then it became bigger and bigger. And one day I finally called Allan and I asked him if I could quit the corporate job that I'd had for 7 years and we could focus on doing photography full time. And he said yes, and the rest is history.
So were you still working in the boat business at
No,
the
at
time?
that point I was doing the photography
Okay.
full time.
Okay. Okay.
So since
And that's when ALM Photo was.
Yeah,
Was-
like as a part-time business, it was born, and then it really became more of what we did once I joined up with him full time, and it's been an interesting journey.
Now, outside of ALM Photo, you also do other artistic.
Yes.
You've got a lot of artistic ventures that you do. The Sassy Glass Studio. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like what that is? I see your stuff on Facebook, and you're at the Market Square
At the farmers market,
Yeah, farmers
yeah.
market a lot. So
Yeah, I do fused glass art, which is different than blown glass.
Okay.
People are usually familiar with how that works, and fused glass art, it's created in a kiln, and so I take glass that's already made. I don't make the glass from scratch, which that would be a whole nother project, I guess. And I assemble it and how I want it to look, put it in the kiln, and it's basically like you're cooking brownies. You put it in there for a certain amount of time, it does a certain thing, you take it out. So it makes all the glass one solid piece of glass, and then a lot of the pieces go back into the kiln to be slumped or draped into a mold. So I can make anything from little pendants to platters, vases, anything,
okay,
pretty much.
okay,
And that actually was a business that happened by accident. One of Allan's sisters was doing fused glass art and decided she didn't have time to do it anymore, and sent an email out and said to the family and said, who wants my kiln and the glass I have? And I thought, well, we're working for ourselves now. Maybe I have some extra time I could learn how to do this. So I said I would take it, and again, like the rest is history. I taught myself how to work with the glass and do all that, and decided that if I was going to do it, I should make it a business. So I did that, and now I create fused glass art. I also teach classes,
okay, cool.
and that kind of led me to the most recent business that I started, helping other small and creative business people either launch their business or grow their business. So I started a consulting and mentoring business.
Okay,
Because people would come and ask me, how did you get your photography business going? How did you get that glass business going? So it became just another thing that I was doing.
yeah,
So
okay.
might as well get paid to do it.
Exactly. And I think that's probably a good segue. Allan, you posted, I guess a couple weeks ago, you posted a video we have a Knoxville Photographers Meetup Facebook page that I guess you started, right, Lisa? Or did you start that?
Yeah, the
it's
next
like
level
3 of us
page.
did
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
You guys were there at the beginning.
Right.
Anyways, so I'm a member of this group too, and I see you guys are probably a couple most active members of the group. But I saw you posted a video from Adweek, a link to Adweek that had about artists or what was it in
It's at the
advertising guys pitching on spec, right?
Right,
And so
right.
it was a huge post, and I actually reposted the video on Photography Bay, generated a lot of a lot of comments on it, and people are. I don't know. It really struck a chord with people, and I guess can you talk a little bit about marketing your photography, and then how getting paid versus working for free, and how you, I guess, balance that line?
Can I talk about
Well, obviously it's a fine line. You don't necessarily have to do it, but it's good to give back to the community, and it can help to promote your business. You have to do it to a certain limit, because then everybody wants your services for free, in which case they don't see any value in it.
Yeah.
So they're typically asking for it, but then if you turn around and they're not giving their services for free, nonprofit or not. So you kind of have to figure out a way to limit yourself to doing a certain amount per year, and you have to figure out a way to politely decline sometimes. People say, well, it's going to be great exposure, but like they said in the video, exposure's not paying any of the bills.
Right.
And typically, if somebody starts a discussion or a negotiation, it will be good exposure for you, then I know it's probably not going to be any exposure at all.
Right.
So, so the delicate part is how to politely decline. And there are some that you do because it's something you're passionate about, or it's just fun events, things like that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the work that we do for the Appalachian Mountain Bike Club.
Right. Yeah, I see you guys all over that, and really just all over social media in a lot of aspects in the Knoxville community. With and I don't know what your work is with the Mountain Bike Club, and then film festivals, and just it seems like every time there's something going on, I see you guys kind of in the middle of that, and I got to think that's good for your brand.
Yeah, it is, but you do have to realize at some point that you can only do so much. So, yeah, we do photograph stuff for the Mountain Bike Club, but that really has helped us. I mean, everybody knows who we are from that. As far as like within the Mountain Bike Club, I don't know whether it actually ever will translate into any other jobs. But we do, in the past, when they had like the 24-hour film festival, we would photograph all the events for them for that. And they would, kind of cross-promote us, and we'd be listed in the program. So when it comes to doing things that will get you exposure, you have to look at it like, what are we doing for this person or this company? What are they going to do for us, kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's almost a sponsorship kind of thing,
and
rather
it
than
is. You
giving
become
my
a
services
sponsor
for free.
Right. And just sometimes people don't think about the time that it takes to do something. I mean, even with my glass business, I get people asking me to donate items to an auction. Well, I have to, unless I want to just get rid of a piece, that I could sell to someone for actual dollars, I'm going to have to create something new, and that takes time, it takes materials, and all that. So you have to think about what's in it for me. And Allan's right when they say, this will help you promote your business, or this is good exposure. Artists, any creative people, almost always that's the kind of thing they get. Whether you're a graphic designer, a photographer, any kind of artist, it's like, yes, give us your thing for free, and we'll share this with the world. Yeah. Well, a lot of times people say, oh yeah, we'll be tweeting that and putting it on Facebook, and I'm thinking, I have more followers on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram than you have. So you're not getting it, you're getting it out to some different people maybe, but if we look at it that way, so.
Or they say it's like, it'd be great for your portfolio. I'm like,
oh yeah.
I've been doing it for a long time. I got a pretty big portfolio, so it'd have to be something extraordinary.
Yeah.
And obviously, based on my portfolio, you found me, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is a hard topic, and that was an interesting video.
Yeah.
And anyone who creates things, and even like when I'm at the farmer's market, and some of my friends that create items, necklaces or make, things that are stitched, and people come into their booth and say, "Oh, that's so cool. Oh, I could make that." And it's like, no, that's why you pay people to do things, because they're good at it.
Right.
So, yeah, the photography for free thing, we've really, in the beginning when we started our business, it was nice to have extra opportunities to get some exposure, but we don't need it now because it's too much time on the back end. you know.
So so you're an established business now, and you're established photographers. You have a profile in the community. Do you think, going back to when you started the business, do you think that's something that maybe new photographers who don't necessarily have the technical chops or have the portfolio, do you think that's something that they should look at as an opportunity to kind of build their craft or build their business, or do you think there's better ways to do that?
There's probably better ways to do it, but I mean, going out and putting work into the community that gets you return is good. We probably started out like everybody else did. We probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Doing the spec work or free work or charity work, while it's good, it probably needs to be structured from the beginning so you don't get stuck in the loop.
Yeah.
Where people just expect that's what you do.
Part of your business and marketing plan.
So
right?
it needs to be strategically done from the beginning, not just, okay, yeah, I'll shoot that for $50, because then you're a $50 photographer.
Right.
So there needs to be structure from the beginning so that you're not having to fight your way out of it.
And we did kind of figure out a way to circumvent that by letting people know how much that service would actually cost, so that they would see the value in it. It's like, if you're an event photographer, and which we do a lot of events, and we charge X per hour. And if someone said, hey, our nonprofit's doing this event, could you come and photograph it for a few hours? Then I can say yes or no based on whether we have the time to do it. But I can also let them know how much that is worth, because they may not know. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people don't know how much it should be worth.
A lot of photographers don't know.
Well, and a lot of
new photographers don't know how to price, and that's a big topic in and of itself. What do we price at? And then you've got everybody pricing from the bottom of the barrel, up to the guys that used to shoot film and think that they can price in what the market was when there weren't any photographers in their market.
Right, when there was, because it wasn't that long ago that there were very few photographers, say, in our geographic area of Knoxville. And I've not lived in Knoxville my whole life, but I know plenty of the, and I don't mean older, like that they're that old, but that have been around for a long time, since before us. And even when we got into photography, it was in the very early end of the digital side of things. And so there were plenty of film photographers still doing film, and they were already, kind of like, oh, these other people are coming into our space. So, I'm sure a lot of them had to change things and switch over to doing things digitally, or now everybody's going back to shooting film.
Yeah.
But I think that when people got into photography, they didn't really know how to price. People don't know how to price their time. And we had struggled with that as well. But now I know what my time is worth, and I know how much time it's gonna take post-production. And that's Allan's area, like where he handles almost all of that. 99.9% of it. I rarely have to post-process anything. I call photos, but he has to do all the editing. So, and every photo gets touched somehow, even if it's stuff.
And the people at the events or whatever, all they see is you push the button.
Right.
And you're there for 2 or 3 hours, and
they don't see the training that goes in beforehand to get the look that they're looking for, or all the post-processing behind the scenes, which is typically, for every hour of shooting, it's at least 2 hours.
Right.
So they don't see any of that, and then people talk about the film where they had to be processed. Well, now the photographer is not just photographer; he's also the lab.
Right.
So
Are you guys shooting any film?
No.
No. We,
Did we lose you? I think we may have lost you.
uh-oh.
Am I back in?
You're back. All right, good.
No, we haven't kind of jumped, not that it's really a bandwagon,
Right.
but
Yeah,
I'm
it
kind of,
kinda- it kinda is.
kind of is. It's like
Yeah.
It's got a niche.
a trend and
Yeah.
a niche thing. And I get that. I guess to me, it would just mean investing in more equipment and having to
Pull any old
spend more
equipment out.
money.
Yeah.
I think I still have the Pentax from high school.
I did find some old cameras stored away.
I still tinker with film a little bit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't process my own. I'll send it off
Send it
somewhere.
off.
But a lot of places now won't give you back your negatives if you take it to the fast
Really?
labs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They ship it off, have it printed, keep your negatives, send you back digital negatives, I guess, or digital copies.
Oh, wow.
So
That's interesting.
Yeah,
So
I'm not comfortable with that.
Huh.
somebody's printing your photos
Yeah.
somewhere and they're selling
Or
them.
they
That's
or
what
they
they're
destroy
doing.
them.
Yeah.
It's just
Well, they're
And
running
then
them
it's
through-
gone.
Yeah.
And
They're
you're-
running them through a drum scanner and give you the disc and throw them away.
yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But pricing your time is difficult. And for anything, when I'm pricing my glass work, I have to figure out how much time it took, what were the materials, and some pieces take less time, some take more, and they may visually to the customer look very similar. So sometimes you do have to explain, like, why is this thing more than that, or why does this type of photography cost more than this? If
Yeah.
you just want me to show up and, like, photographing an event is a skillful thing, especially if you have to get groups of people, or if you're, setting up a background and getting individual shots of folks. But that's completely different than a wedding,
Right.
Like, there's no do-over on the wedding. If you maybe miss a few shots of an event, that's not critical, but you cannot miss something for a wedding.
Right.
So, and that's why things like that cost more. It's more time, it's more, you're paying for talent, you're paying for the post-processing, all of it. So,
What would you tell the new photographer or the aspiring professional photographer of what they need to do to sit down to look at and to understand how they should price their time, and I guess based on the scale of how their skill and how their quality of work factors into that as well? What would you tell someone that a new photographer that wants to be
Yeah.
ALM Photo someday? What would you tell them? Hey, here's how you get started going on pricing this right.
there's a couple of different ways that they could look at it. One way, and this is when you do get more established, but how much money do you want to make, with your photography, and then kind of work that backwards into, what type of, then it'll depend on what type of photography you do. If so, as an example, just take someone who wants to shoot weddings. So they need to make sure that they're pricing their weddings for their ability and for the product that they can produce. And so when you're new, maybe you don't understand lighting and posing as much as someone who's been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. So you need to think about that and then market yourself to customers who are your customer, because that's a big part of it.
Mhm.
I mean, we have a certain price point that we charge for our wedding photography. So we're not marketing ourselves to someone who's very budget conscious. And at the same time, we're not charging, $10,000 or more for a wedding. So you have to make sure who's your customer, who are you going to sell your services to, because that will also come into play. And so it's kind of a combination of things. Who's your customer? How much money are you expecting to make? And then what are your skills? And what's the product that you can produce? So once you figure out a little bit all that, then you can decide. So most photographers will make the mistake of doing one of two things. They either price themselves too low or they price themselves too high when they're starting out. And then they're pushing themselves into that, now they're labeled as the cheap photographer, or they're labeled as someone who's trying to promote themselves as something they're not yet.
Okay. Yeah.
So they'll, if they stick with it, eventually they'll get to that. But I do see that where someone will have actually good work and they're pricing themselves so low, it's going to take them forever to get people to pay them what they're worth.
Or they're going to work more than they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They end up overbooking and aren't planning with everything behind it, and then they can't get out of it because even the people that love their work will refer them at the price they paid.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it makes it harder to raise your prices because, if you shot a wedding 5 years ago for $400, that person said, "Oh, they're great. You did $400." Like,
Yeah. That actually did happen.
Yeah. That wedding was that wedding was 10 years prior to that referral.
Yeah,
Wow.
like people refer,
Yeah.
like from our very first real wedding that someone paid us money. And
That was technically a relative
and
too.
it was, so it was like the super relative friends and family discount price plus first real wedding, and then they're telling someone 10 years later, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it never occurred to me that would happen.
Yeah.
That far down the road, someone would, tell someone else what they paid, and that it would totally be, way off from the current price.
So did you book at the current price, or did you not book that wedding?
I don't think we ended up. I think for other reasons we didn't end up booking the wedding. I don't think it was the price.
That's a tough pickle. I mean, it really goes to show that. I mean, it's hard to get out of that once you put yourself into I'm this price photographer. Even as your skill improves and you're trying to move up the ladder, that it's hard to get away from that.
Yeah, in situations like that, you're almost better off being that overpriced photographer and then being able to give added value or some type of discount to those early clients. They know what the actual price should have been, so you don't have to fight that price climb.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
So even,
kind of like a nonprofit or the volunteer say, here's what my work is worth. Here, in this case, here's the discount that I'm giving you. Here's the extra that I'm throwing on top of.
Right, right. And because like I said, we don't do a lot of weddings, but if we do a wedding and it is for a really close friend or a relative, we make sure that we have this conversation with, this is how much, we charge. And they probably have seen it on our website even.
Okay.
And then that way there's no confusion later. We learned the hard way, just like a lot of things.
We talked a couple of minutes ago about the Facebook group and the meetup group, and the Facebook group is actually a meetup group, right?
Yes.
So you guys meet twice a month, right?
We used to meet twice a month. I recently changed it. We've been meeting for probably 8 years, and when we first started meeting, we'd meet for lunch twice a month, and we had a really good crowd of people coming.
How'd that get started, the meetup group?
It was a combination of, do you know Tom Giesler? He teaches through UT's Personal and Professional Development Program, he teaches photography courses, the fundamentals of photography, I think is what it's called. There's Fundamentals 1, now there's Fundamentals 2, and a bunch of other people teach courses in photography through the Personal and Professional Development Program. And you can actually get a certificate of, I guess they call it a certificate of photography. If you complete enough classes, you get a certificate. So it's there are hobbyists. Allan's taken courses through there. I've taken classes through there. Other really
I actually helped teach some of them.
good people who are really awesome photographers have gone through some of those courses. that was the only way Allan could get me to listen about how to understand like aperture and shutter speed was to have someone else tell me. So Tom would have all these kind of newer photographers, people who were interested in photography. A lot of them were just hobbyists, but some of them actually went on to have a photography business. So he had a gentleman, D. Pinkard, who would come and help him with his class, just kind of wrangle people and just provide some support. And they had this great idea that there should be a photography meetup group. And somehow it became the Mueller's project.
Okay.
So between them and us, we decided to start this lunch meetup group. And like I said, it started out as very active and a lot of people showing up, and we'd usually discuss a specific topic each week. And over the last few years, it's sort of gotten smaller and just a few people show up and we just sort of meet up and talk about whatever someone wants to talk about. If someone gets new gear, they bring new gear and show it off, or they might have questions. But it became a way of providing kind of some support for local photographers of any. We didn't discourage new people, we didn't discourage hobbyists. It was like whatever you wanted to come and talk about, we would let you talk about it.
So yeah, we basically got going as a way to share ideas, come up with new ideas, share shooting areas, things about
That's
new
right.
equipment, things that you had shot, a way to, show it to other people, maybe get a little critique, and we basically worked with everything from new photographers all the way up to working professionals. So it was, a good group and a good way to share ideas, and it also helped people get together to work on projects and things like that.
Yeah, I forgot about we used to have kind of an agenda we'd go through and share new shooting locations. If someone had found a cool place to shoot, it was like a good place too, where a lot of photographers didn't know that, like if you were going to the UT Gardens and shooting and getting paid to shoot whatever it was you were shooting, you were supposed to be paying, a fee to UT Gardens to use the facility. And so it was a good way to like kind of let people know about things in a happy environment so that they didn't feel like some other photographer was attacking them and saying, I saw you at UT Gardens and you were, doing a engagement shoot, and did you get permission, did you pay, and all that kind of thing. So and different things like that too.
And we had
talk about
different topics, and be things from how to shoot, slow motion stuff or get the motion blur, all the way up to actual business topics. And we get a lot of people from shooting pretty pictures, and not so many for the business stuff, which a lot of them should have come to.
Yeah, that's true. And that is,
So we had people come in and talk about taxes, and people come in and talk about copyright. But we tended to get the biggest groups for talking about lighting and new equipment and just taking pretty pictures.
So you think the business topics are what a lot of photographers are missing nowadays?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've, as part of the photography program that they have at UT, I've toyed with the idea of submitting a course that would cover like the business side of things, because that is an area, and it's not just photographers, but that's kind of how my Pink Spark creative business came around. Was creative people would make stuff,
Right.
and they'd want to sell it, but they didn't know what to do about, do they have to pay, charge sales tax, all those businessy things,
Right,
accounting and things like that. So a lot of people would go to take the classes, they'd learn how to take pretty pictures, and then they'd be like, I'm going to hang my shingle out, and now I'm, Lisa Mueller, photographer, but they wouldn't know what to do after that. They would ask us, do we need a business license? Do we need to, what about sales tax? And what about insurance? And so they wouldn't know any of that. They'd be able to understand how to get a good exposure on a photo, but not be able to make it into take that and translate it into a business, basically. So,
So sometimes it was hard to get across that you could be an average photographer and a great business person and be successful, or you could be a really great photographer and a bad business person and be unsuccessful. So
yeah.
they kind of left out the business part.
Do you think some of the business ignorance is where we run into issues like we saw in the Adweek, in the video we saw on Adweek, where creatives don't necessarily value their own work?
Right. They kind of price on what they think they can afford, and what they don't understand is they're not their customer.
Yeah.
So they need to be able to take themselves out of the equation and figure out exactly what they need to earn as opposed to what they could afford to pay for.
Yeah, that's very
that makes
true.
sense.
Yeah, a friend of ours who does a lot of pet photography, in particular, Julie Poole. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Oh, yeah.
But she always, like when we would talk about that whole like business side of things, and she would always be, and it would stun some people who would hear her say this, but she would say, like, she's not her own customer. Like, she wouldn't pay the price she charges her customer to have their pet portraits done. But that's what it is, that you have to identify who is your customer, and you might not be, like Allan said, you might not be your own customer. We might not be our own customer either, you know? So you have to figure out, you're not shooting for yourself, you're shooting for the people who are going to pay you. So once you wrap your head around that, it makes,
that's really good.
the business side of it easier. And I really do think that that's where a lot of this pricing problem stemmed from, when a lot of people got into the digital photography. Established photographers were complaining about their pricing. It was because those people not only didn't know how to price, but they were pricing what they would pay. So that kind of...
And they weren't, you know, if they got a new camera, they're not taking that into account. They're not taking all the equipment that they're going to need to post-process. They're not taking into account any kind of education that they've done or plan on doing. And they're thinking, well, I'm just pushing a button, so it's not worth that much. But there's more to it than just pushing the button.
Yeah. Yeah, when you talk about the time and somebody's, delivering, 16 finished photos or whatever on a CD for $45, and they've got 6 hours into that, that's,
Right.
they're making less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
Right, and it depends too. Some people, it's just a little part-time thing they're doing for fun to fulfill, a creative passion they have. That's fine if that's what they're doing. I mean, there are plenty of people that do fused glass art that's just a hobby. I mean, I teach classes to people who then they run out and buy a kiln that is pretty pricey, and buy all the stuff, spend a lot of money, and they start making things. They might not ever sell it anywhere, so I don't care what they do, but I think that a lot of people don't realize like how much time it takes to produce whatever it is, whether it is photography or any kind of art. And so I do run into all the time, I'm like, see what people make, and I'm like, you're only charging what? Like my friend at the farmer's market who does some crocheting things. She makes like these beautiful cowls, and she showed me one. It was really like a lot bigger than one she had done before. And I said, did you put a price on that yet? And she goes, no. And she said, well, what do you think I should price it at? And I said, $75. She's like, what? Because the other ones she had were like 30. And I'm like, it's bigger, it took you longer, it's more materials. And so she put the price on it, and it sold like that same day. She was like, I can't believe that. And I said, because people can tell that that's worth it. If you priced it at the same price as the other ones, they're gonna think like, what's wrong with it? So sometimes I would look at really like people who have good photography at not a very high price, and I wonder what's wrong with it. Like, is there some sort of like smoke and mirrors here? Is that not really? Are these photos on their website not really their work, or what? Because that looks like valuable. Like, that's awesome. And it's only, what? So, yeah.
I've had conversations like that too with friends as well. And you know, really, you need to, they're killing it on the weekend, just, you know, 6-7 shoots on a Saturday of, you know, in a park or whatever.
Right.
Just back to back to back. Spend, you know, all night Saturday and Sunday processing and then delivering these CDs out for, you know, $40-$50 a pop. And, you know, there's a lot of work that's put into that, and it's worth more. Your photography is good. It's worth more than this. And it's good to see, looking back, though, the person I have in mind has, I think they've gotten a hold of a mentor, and they've raised those prices up to where they're more in the market rate, and they're priced according, I think, more to the value of it.
And now they could do 2 or 3 shoots maybe, instead of having to kill themselves doing all that. And that's the other thing, that when you realize that your time has value, you'll use it smarter. Like, just do 1 shoot for the price that you would have done 5 for before. So
but then you can also utilize more time to make those better than you would have trying to cram all that time into those 6 shoots.
And
then, you know, some of those photographers will actually base their pricing on somebody that's not as good as them. They just try to undercut them so they can get more work. So then you end up with a price war that makes no sense at all.
You know, is there any other industry, creative or otherwise, where you have somebody that can just go to Best Buy, buy a piece of consumer electronics equipment, and disrupt the local market? By, you know, I mean, I understand that you have to have but when you're putting an ad on Craigslist and you're saying, you know, here's what I offer, you know,
I'll shoot your wedding for $100.
That totally undercuts the valuation of photography, professional photography, even though it's someone with a brand new camera, you know, with a 18 to 55 millimeter lens that they're gonna, you know, that they've put this price on. It's created this stigma around. Is there anything else like that other than photography?
Photography is probably one of the main ones, but I know some people that design websites, and they've fallen into the same thing.
Yeah, the website thing is the only other one that comes close, because sometimes, like, people who do graphic design will get concerned because other people can, like, you can buy the programs to do that. But that takes, you have to have some creativity in order to do that. Whereas with photography, you do need creativity, but you don't have to have it to just be able to push the button. Like, you don't need to know anything more than how to put the camera on auto and, you know, assemble your subject within the viewfinder and push the button. I mean,
it's always funny because you'll be working with somebody like that, and they're like, how do you get that blurry background?
I love that. You must have a really nice camera. I got that one last week. Posted some pictures of my kids, you know, and got some feedback. Well, you must have a really nice camera. Like, well, I do, but I know how to use it too. You know?
And that's kind of along my point of, when I see work of any type, like, I'm not just saying photography, but other types of arts, other types of creative things, and it makes me think, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I mean, not everyone is a writer, and so some people maybe want to write a book or write poems, but maybe that's not really what they're good at. I love to do watercolors. I haven't picked up my watercolors in a while, but I like to do that, but no one would buy my watercolors. So just because I can, and I've taken a class, doesn't mean that I should do it. So.
Buy watercolors.
I did buy watercolors.
Now you can be a professional.
I could. There might be someone out there that would buy
But
my
you're not going to disrupt the watercolor painting market in Knoxville, right?
No. I could give them away even and not disrupt the market. I'm not going to be posting it on Craigslist that I'm going to do watercolor portraits of your pet or anything. Yeah.
Put 'em on the
I
picture.
should do that. I would probably, that would probably hurt me more than it would hurt anyone else, because I would drive myself crazy trying to do it.
Better off going to one of those things that do the wine and.
Oh, the
Okay.
painting, yeah, where you drink the wine and do the painting. Yeah. Yeah. I could do
That sounds like fun. What going from being able to buy a camera at Best Buy and go hang your shingle out as a professional photographer, what do you guys think about mirrorless cameras? I've got the new EOS M10. This is Canon's new M type mount mirrorless camera here.
It's really cool looking.
My wife, she likes the selfie screen on the mirrorless camera. There's a few. I think Sony's got a couple that do this now too. But she saw this. We were up at Photo Plus, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and she saw the
That'd be easier
selfie
than-
thing there. And what do you guys think about mirrorless cameras in general? Do you use any? Do you have any? Have you tried them?
We don't use any, but they've come a long way, and I'm noticing they're starting to have a lot better video capabilities, which will come in handy.
Sony especially.
Yeah, and they're smaller, so they're easier to use, and they're less imposing. If you're doing more of a street type shoot, you don't have the big camera to carry around. I'm still used to the bigger cameras, so I have a hard time holding them.
Yeah.
I
I agree. When I go out, I would rather I would rather shoot with a DSLR when I'm shooting something seriously.
Right.
But if I'm going to
So
Dollywood, I don't mind taking that.
Right.
What they're doing is they're putting things into the camera that make it easier for everybody to use. A professional can take it and actually do exceptional things with it because they have the training, they know what they're doing. So it's not necessarily just the tool, it's the person using the tool. But I mean, with the flip-up screen, the selfie screen and all that, it's not really targeted toward a professional market. It can be used in a professional environment, but it doesn't really seem that that's their market.
Right. But now Sony, they've got the more advanced, their A7 series.
Yeah, I'm hearing
more
great
advanced.
things about their A7. And they have a lot of different advantages. They don't have the shutter, so you've got they're quieter. They're able to do things because they can move quicker. Video capabilities, they're actually using some of those on the drones for video and for stills. And even I know professional videographers that are using them and love them. So there's definitely advantage to the mirrorless. Most of the development seems to be for the consumer, not necessarily the prosumer.
Yeah.
But it's starting to spread out.
I think it's tough for camera manufacturers now too, with all the smartphones and the move to, because the iPhone and other Android phones take such good photos for a snapshot that market is shrinking. So
then that's probably one of the things that they're actually trying to pull back with the selfie screen. They also have wireless upload.
Yeah,
so you can take a picture and wirelessly transmit it when you're shooting it. So they're putting a lot of capabilities in it that make them more useful, trying to pull back more of the market share.
But you guys aren't moving to mirrorless anytime soon, or looking at those.
She probably won't let me. I have been looking at the A7.
Yeah.
Another investment.
Yeah. Investment.
Well, and that's what we look at any equipment we buy as investment. And I always get mad when you have your equipment, and maybe someone doesn't know that you're a photographer by trade, when they're like, oh, that's so cool, that's a neat toy. And I'm like, oh, I wish it was a toy. But it is interesting that way back when digital cameras first came out, and they were small, and they sold like hotcakes because that was the only way you could get a digital photo. And like you mentioned, the phones take phenomenal. I mean, I'm really amazed with the phone I have, takes great photos. And I sometimes have to tell people that was taken with my phone. And I just think it's kind of cool to have it come back around that there's more that you can do with those cameras, that you can do really good video and things like that. I think it'll be more beneficial to the people that will purchase them.
Yeah, and this would be something that would be good with like mountain biking,
Yeah.
because I can take it with me
Yeah.
and shoot action and catch video that's high
Without
quality
this
without carrying that in my
big-
backpack.
Yeah.
That's much easier.
But so, I mean, there's definitely advantages to it, and the quality is growing quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the mirrorless cameras, like the Sony A7s, are really rivaling what Canon and Nikon have
Yeah.
in their full frame DSLRs.
Yeah.
And speaking of DSLRs, this is the 5DSR, which we talked about before we started, is 50 megapixels. Now, I know you shoot with a 5D Mark III.
3, yeah.
Do you see any reason to move up to 50 megapixels for what you guys do now? Is there any benefit there?
Probably not. I mean, there would be some. It would be depending on the application we put it to.
Mm-hmm.
But unless we can get better low light or, better light range, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
then it wouldn't really necessarily make sense, because, a 50 megapixel image would basically be full resolution on a billboard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's
for
it's
a
huge.
billboard shoot, yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to have that extra depth where you can see more in the shadows, carry more of the highlights. Then it would make sense, because I've seen some images that were shot right next to the Mark III that were done with a Mamiya,
Mm-hmm.
and the extra depth that you can catch in the shadow and that type of thing. That was actually pretty nice. Just making it bigger doesn't make sense unless it makes it better.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That's true.
I don't think that there's any low light benefit to this guy. In fact, I think the Mark III is quite a bit better to my eyes. And this actually has a lower sensitivity range too. It
Yeah.
doesn't go
Oh.
up as high, but because you got smaller
Right,
pixels
right.
on there.
So, yeah, and it's
yeah.
got to have more light to get all that in there, which, it's the same deal with the, full frame, medium format cameras. They still need more light, but they're also slower, so you're not typically going to use them for action or anything like that. If I can get something that can pull in more light quickly, then it's going to make it a better camera for shooting weddings or shooting action sports or something like that, where you've got to catch it quick, and it has to be, clear, crisp, and you don't have time to set the shot up. It's, for me, weddings are the same as action sports. It could be doing 200 miles an hour. You still got to get it, and you got one chance to get it.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about low light sensitivity. I don't know that there's a better camera on the market now than the Sony A7S II.
Yeah.
They have 3 models: the A7 II, the A7S II, and the A7R II. The A7R is, I think, 42 megapixels, while the A7S is 12 something. And if you go and look at the first generation of the A7S, there were a lot of videos put out where people were shooting with just moonlight or incredible low light capabilities,
wow.
ISO 100,000 plus,
Yeah.
and it's low noise. So it'd be interesting to see if Canon or Nikon drops back down and offers a real low light killer like what Sony has with their A7S model.
Think they have the ability to design it to where it pulls in more light and stay the same size. They just need to speed up the R&D. It's probably out there already.
Yeah.
They just haven't shown it yet, and they're waiting to bump it in. But yeah, I'm hearing the A7 has great low light, even with their video.
Yeah. Go look at some of the A7S sample videos that people have put out, or things that people have shot, and there's a really cool moonlight, or at least one that I've seen.
Oh, wow.
That's just shot all by moonlight, and that's the only light used in the video. It's pretty incredible, and I'll put a link to that in this videos page too, so people can go check it out.
there's no telling what they'll come out with next.
Hopefully Canon will, because I can't really.
Yeah, we're not switching.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a possibility as an additional camera, but at this point, I don't know, we probably have 80,000 plus invested in lenses.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's, I think there's more value to your lenses than there are on your bodies. And it'd have to be a substantial jump to push me.
Right.
And I don't have that many lenses, but it would have to be a substantial jump to push me off of Canon.
Typically, when I'm talking to new photographers, I tell them put their money into the lenses, because you can get a good L series or whatever Nikon's equivalent is. That lens will last. The camera body is always going to change. They're going to update those at least once a year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's always a new camera coming out.
Always a new camera. There's always, but if you start out with a inferior lens, you get a better camera body. The camera body is only as good as the lens.
That's true. That's very true.
Speaking of the 5D Mark III, you had a mishap with yours last week, and I'm curious what happened, and did it survive?
It survived.
It's not pretty.
It's a miracle that the mud only ended up on either side of it. So like this part of it's muddy, but it didn't get on the lens. And for, I don't know why, but for like the last year.
This was a mountain bike day?
Yeah, it was at the Appalachian Mountain Bike Club Fall Festival. And they were doing a short track race, and it was extremely muddy. And it was like grossly muddy. So it was funny to see everyone kind of come in towards the start-finish line, because they would be going pretty fast, and then they'd get bogged down into the mud. So it was, it was just really funny. Yeah. So about a year ago, we took the straps off the cameras.
All the straps are off the camera because of the video.
Okay.
Because we didn't, so
her
we
strap's
just
going back on.
Never put the straps back on. So I hadn't had a problem all day walking around, taking pictures, holding the camera. But apparently, I was panning and took the shot, and the camera somehow just like popped out of my hands. Is all I can think of, because there's no reason why I would have just thrown it. But
if you give me a picture of that, I'll put that up here so we can see it.
Yeah, okay. I will send you the picture. But I panicked, like I freaked, because at first I thought it's covered, like it's going to be covered with mud. But when I picked it up and it wasn't that bad, then I was like, okay.
It wasn't that good.
It wasn't that good, but it also didn't hit a hard surface. It went
squish. So, thinking it's for weather sealing, right?
So if it could have been, if it had not happened, I would have been thrilled. But it was kind of funny in a way, because I picked it up, I scraped off most of the like chunky mud, and I kept shooting for the rest of the day. And someone gave me something to wipe it off, carefully with. But it's actually still sitting with the mud on it.
It's in the process of cleaning still.
We just left it to make sure it dried first, but I'm pretty sure it's fine. So yeah, 2 bits of advice there. If you're gonna shoot in sort of weird, mucky situations, have some sort of strap, whether it's your neck strap, have a hand strap, whatever, so it doesn't go flying out of your hand. And
I'm a hand strap guy. I like a hand strap on the grip.
We've never used hand straps. We never. Well, I mean, you've used them, but we don't have them per se. And all those tricky little like black rapid. Never really been a fan of wanting to fuss with the camera. I'm like, I want to have it. So I think I'm gonna put on my B&H list one of these hand straps.
I think Spider Holster's got one that has a nice. A lot of the hand straps go across your knuckles, and it's easy for your hand to slip out.
Oh yeah.
I think it's Spider Holster that I tried at Photo Plus last year. Actually, it comes back and goes more around your wrist. The way it's angled, and you can let go of it, and it'll actually just hang on your hand.
That makes sense. If it kind of goes around here and there.
It's
I need like
check it out.
Glove.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was an interesting situation.
I didn't drop mine.
No, you didn't. You didn't. When I walked up to him, I was like, I wanted to cry, but I really probably just laughed because there wasn't anything I could do about it. Once it's done, it's done.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have laughed. It's a good thing I was shooting because I didn't see it.
Yeah, he didn't see it. That was it was interesting. We could have used a really good low light camera for that event when it got dark.
Well, I mean, the Mark III is a good low-light camera, and the main reason we're using the Mark III is for the wide variety of things we do. We're shooting video, we shoot weddings, I do architecture, all that, so it covers a wide range. It's got the low-light capabilities, which are a necessity for weddings, because for some reason, they have to have those in the dark.
Yeah.
A lot of times, a lot of sports I shoot, they're out in bright sunlight, so you can get fast shutter speeds. The mountain biking in the woods can kind of vary, and the architecture stuff is it can be challenging at times, but it's a great camera for everything we do.
What's your wish list on a Mark IV? Like, what would get you to upgrade to a Mark IV? I'm hearing low light. You're a big fan of the
better low light, even though people. I mean, I work on the images at basically a pixel level. So where people are saying they don't see any noise, I can still see it. So, and they might not see it in the finished product, but I can see it ahead of, beforehand. So even better low light would be awesome.
What ISOs are you shooting up to in these low light weddings?
She'll shoot way up, so I have to do more editing on hers.
I'm like, it goes that high.
I try not to go above 1250.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that. It does have noise in it. I can clean it up pretty good. Sometimes I'll get hers. She's at 5,000. I have to edit separately.
What are you editing in? Using
everything that I shoot goes through Lightroom.
Okay.
And then probably 20 to 40% is all that ever sees Photoshop.
What are you liking Lightroom? Are you happy with what Adobe's doing with Lightroom and the Creative Cloud subscription?
I'm not actually in the subscription.
Okay.
Everybody.
Well, you don't have to be, because the Mark III's is supported in the older versions too, and so.
Okay.
But you're current on Lightroom 6 then, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But you're still using CS6 and things like that for Photoshop. Okay.
And it was kind of funny because everybody said I needed to be on the cloud, and I guess in the initial, when it came out, they had one day where everybody shut down.
Oh,
that's right. I remember that.
So I kind of freaked out. It's like, okay, so now I know why I'm not going to it.
Yeah.
He's kind of old school.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's
and it's one of those things that go both ways, but I mean, I had people that they literally couldn't get to anything they had for almost a week.
Yeah, there was a day or so that I had a problem.
Yeah, maybe it was a day or so. It wasn't a week, but just having it shut down like that probably threw a bunch of people into panic mode.
Yeah. Well, and you've got people that are using the software for their job to deliver a product to a client that day, and they can't get to their yeah. That's a real problem.
So, but other than that, I mean, Lightroom does enough. For most of the things that we shoot, I can go through and do at least 90% of what needs to be done to a photo in Lightroom.
Yeah.
And some of the things that Lightroom does actually work better or easier than they do in Photoshop. You can do more detailed stuff in Photoshop and more elaborate or things after the fact that still make Photoshop necessary for me.
Right.
So it's not. I'm not getting rid of Photoshop. I still have to have it. But it's kind of odd having to keep paying for something for the cloud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like
there's a lot of people that have that have issues with that, and I mean it's understandable, and I think we're at a point where there's a market opportunity, and I think somebody is going to jump into that kind of area where Lightroom and Photoshop are at right now, and maybe give Adobe a run for the money on some of that stuff. But it'll be interesting to see what happens over the course of the next couple of years.
Yeah, Adobe's had kind of a monopoly on it for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
But,
especially
you know,
after Apple bowed out of aperture, there were a lot of people still using aperture, and that was in their workflow.
so they were
Apple steps
forced
out.
into it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm gonna have to switch to the cloud because of the constant updating and stuff like that. But it's nice to be able to not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But I do like a lot of the upgrades and stuff that they're continually doing
Yeah.
that I don't have access to. I mean,
Yeah.
there's workarounds to get there, but
Right.
having it makes it a lot easier.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Make it easier.
the other problem is every time you get a operating system upgrade,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, is it going to work or not going to work?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I still haven't upgraded. I'm a Mac user, and I still haven't upgraded to the latest OS 10. Well, whatever the newest one is. I generally wait a couple months, let everybody else figure out where the bugs are at.
Right.
I'm still on iOS 8. I'm not ready to update to iOS 9 yet. So, I'm not a fan of the early adopting either.
and we're on the Windows, and I keep getting reminders. I can upgrade to Windows 10 for free. And
He's like, I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'll
it sounds
do
like
it
a good
first.
idea. It's like,
I'll do it.
and then all of a sudden, half of the things that you have that you work on, it's like, well, it's not compatible.
Yeah.
So, and there's, that it happens when they upgrade Lightroom or Photoshop. There's actions and things, scripts
Plugins,
and stuff that
right,
you've
yeah.
done. It's like all of a sudden they don't work or they don't look the same or just like, okay, that didn't,
Yeah.
So I actually have one version of Lightroom that occasionally I will go back to because I haven't figured out how to reverse engineer an action to make it come up with the same look.
Okay.
So.
I'm not
very
laughing at
good.
you.
Yeah, you are.
Laughing with you. It's like technology. Like 25 years ago, we wouldn't have had these problems.
Yeah, and it's,
We wouldn't be having this conversation.
So I was saying, it's like, okay, yeah, we don't support that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, where can people find you, or do you have any other hot button issues that you want to get out, or if not, where can people find your work and find out more about you and ALM Photo and what you guys do?
We're all over social media.
They can find us. Our website is almphoto.com. We're on Twitter, ALM Photo. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and all that at All Things Sassy, and sassyglassstudio.com for my website, for my glass work. And kind of, I can, because it has to do with photography and glass, but I can put photos on glass through a special process. It's a special kind of decal that's created that goes onto the glass and fires permanently onto the glass.
Cool.
So if someone has cool photos or something that they want to, instead of giving people another print to hang on the wall or a canvas or whatever, what made me investigate it was I was trying to figure out how I could combine glass and the photography together, and people had asked me about it, and I was like, I don't know. And after much searching, I finally found a company that has the type of printer and printing process that allows you to do that. And you can also put the decals onto ceramics and like for pottery and that kind of thing. But I was like, well, that sounds like a great idea, but will it really work? And so the first couple of pieces I did, I was blown away with how dead on, like a print would look to the finished piece. And some colors, the translation, because of the printing process, is a little off. The colors will change a little bit. But for people colors, like face, skin tones, come out fine. And it was like, I want to offer something to people that's different so that they can give the grandmother a set of coasters or a platter that she can actually like put cookies on or something like that, that's not just another print hanging on the wall or stuck away in a closet because they've run out of places to put them. So that's something kind of neat and unusual.
Send me a picture of what that sample looks like, and we'll link that up for sure.
I will, because I've even done pieces onto coasters or pendants that are photos that I've taken with my cell phone. So it doesn't have to be a photo that's taken with some amazing equipment. I've had customers send me photos that were out of focus, and I don't even know what they are, but they mean something to them and the person that they're giving this piece to as a gift, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, photography should be accessible for everyone is what I think. Whether you take a picture with your cell phone or, 50 megapixel camera, whatever it is. No, you can find us. Oh, and on Facebook, search ALM Photo or Seth Glass Studio. We're on there. We're everywhere,
Yeah. We'll link you up in the post with the video here. So awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on and hanging out for a little while. I appreciate it.
Thank you
a lot
for
of fun.
having us, Eric.
Yeah, great.
It was fun.
Thanks a lot. All right. If you made it to the end, thanks for hanging out with us. If you want to know more about Allan and Lisa, ALM Photo, Sassy Glass Studio, or Pink Sparkle Creative, check out the links in the YouTube description and on Photography Bay. Also, leave a comment and let us know your thoughts on what we talked about. Do you work for free? What are your strategies in pricing? And have you ever dropped your DSLR in the mud? And let me know if you liked this video and if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Happy shooting, guys.